Why do some painters suddenly start winning major competitions while others plateau no matter how many classes they take? If people compliment your portraits and they love your work, but you don't, and you're still searching for that breakthrough, it's probably because you can't pinpoint exactly what needs to change. Because if you could, you already would have fixed it. So I'm going to show you how to spot exactly what's holding your portraits back using the system that just helped my client Grace win first prize at the top portrait competition in the world. In addition to Grace's win, this worked for Karen, who went from commissions that felt like painstaking photocopies to a body of work and a style she actually wanted to be known for, and her clients started asking her for soon after. It worked for Paolo, who went from painting as a hobbyist to having a solo show. It worked for John, whose paintings have been recognized in Bold Brush over and over again. It worked for Bridget, who won the John Dudley Portrait Prize. And it was the secret ingredient that took me from working a desk job and painting on the side as an amateur all the way to becoming an Oil Painters of America gold medalist and Portrait Society of America faculty member, all within 7 years while being entirely self-taught. That's the thing I love about this system. It allows you to stop waiting on someone else to hand you a breakthrough. It means you don't have to go back to art school, and it means you won't spend so long spinning your wheels that you'll burn out or give up. So what is this strategy and how does it differ from the portrait advice you've already gotten? Most critique keeps you in a plateau for one simple reason. It's based on what the other person assumes that you're trying to do, or what they would do. Even when the feedback is thoughtful, it can still pull you off course. Let me show you what I mean. I once showed this painting to 3 master level artists. Artist number 1 looked at this illustration sketch I was working on and said, "Oh, you're going for a Bernie Fuchs kind of thing." So the feedback becomes more atmosphere, more suggestion, simplify the forms. But then artist number 2 looked at it and thought, no, this feels more like Leyendecker. And so the feedback becomes, all right, cleaner graphic shapes, stronger line work, crisper design decisions. But then artist number 3 could look at this and go, I think I'm seeing Rockwell here. So the feedback becomes push the storytelling, adjust the composition, and get more expression. Any one of those directions could have made this painting better. But do you see the problem? Those are 3 completely different targets, and none of them had anything to do with what I was actually aiming at, because my real influences were more like this. So I have Sorolla, Sargent, Richard Schmid. These aren't just different styles or sets of techniques. This is an entirely different genre. So the critique didn't touch the real sticking points I was struggling with because people kept assuming I was trying to become an illustrator. So I spent years trying to force my work into a lane I didn't even want when I could have been building toward the goal that actually fit me. So this is the old way. You collect feedback and it's all valid, but it's not building you to your goal. And you end up with improvement that's scattered in a bunch of different directions. It doesn't add up to mastery. Because mastery is when we take a skill to an extreme, which means we need all those little lessons to add up to something new. So here's what we're going to do instead. Before you continue your painting journey today, we're going to consult your GPS, your goal, the paintings that you're actually aiming toward, and your sticking points. Because once those are clear, critique stops feeling like one person's opinion and becomes an objective roadmap to take you all the way to your goal. So in this case, my goal was to create the kind of oil portraits that could win at a major competition. The paintings I'm aiming at, we can see here on screen, and my sticking points or struggles were around composing in a way that actually let me show off what I most love to do and gather the reference necessary to actually do it. But wanting to paint portraits at such a high level that it could actually win awards, that's a really specific target. It is the artistic equivalent to hitting a bullseye. And if you can't clearly visualize what an award-winning painting in your voice actually looks like, you're basically trying to hit that bullseye blindfolded. And that's what most painters do. We paint first, and only at the end do we ask, did this match what I was going for? So in the next part, I'm going to show you how to take the blindfold off, because that's how I was able to make this painting. So let's dive in so we can make this happen for you too. To help you do this step by step as you watch this video, I've put everything you need in workbook form so you don't have to scramble to take notes as you're watching. I've linked it down in the description for you. To start, I'm going to show you how to visualize your ideal paintings the easy way. Because when most painters get stuck on areas like brushwork or composition, it's actually that they get stuck on direction first. That's exactly what happened to me earlier in my journey. I wasn't stopping to really picture what I wanted to make. All I knew was that I wanted a career in art. But because I didn't stop to fully picture what a painting with my ideal brushwork or color or composition actually looked like, I was stuck in this cycle of waiting for the right class to give me that eureka moment. So we're going to make this easy by funneling toward clarity, starting with the simplest step to capture your taste. So today, I want you to put together a collection of your favorite art, pieces you wish you had painted. I don't want you to analyze it yet. We're just using this as one place to collect what you love. You can use Pinterest, you can use a photo album on your phone, you can use a physical cork board in your studio, but I want you to give yourself a limit of like 20 pieces to start. The goal isn't to overwhelm you with a big project. The goal also isn't to judge these yet or try to understand it. It's just to take the blindfold off and make the target visible by gathering what genuinely excites you. In my case, I'm actually going to start with a saved folder from Instagram. This is where I've been saving social media posts of art that I love for years. And chances are, if you're watching this video, you've probably done something like this already. So I'm kicking off with all of these great saved paintings. And what I like to do is I like to simply copy them over to Pinterest so I can arrange them a bit more thoughtfully. To do this, you can use a Pinterest browser extension like I have here. So I can literally just hover over this image and I can put it onto an inspiration board. Or you can do this manually by going ahead and opening up that inspiration board. And then what I'll go ahead and do from here is click this little plus icon at the bottom of the board to add a new pin. And then I can simply grab the URL of this post. Now it's important to open up the actual post itself and not just your Pinterest home feed for this. And then I will say add pin. And now that is on my inspiration board as well. So I could absolutely just keep doing this until I have, 20 or more really solid pieces that represent what I love. And it definitely would have all of my favorites on there. But what if you don't even know where to find examples of art that you like to get started? Like, you're willing to build a board, you just don't have a good stream of real paintings to pull from anywhere. Here are two easy ways to fix that. I'm going to show you one with Pinterest and the other with Instagram. So option one is Pinterest. Pinterest used to be so ideal for this, and it still can be really useful. You just have to reduce the AI clutter that has kind of taken over that platform. So if you already have started a Pinterest board, scroll to the bottom and use find some ideas for this board. That's still one of the fastest ways to find similar work that you resonate with. So for me, I already have this inspiration board in progress. You can see I have quite a few pieces saved to it. All I need to do is scroll to the bottom of this, if I can ever get there, and you'll see that I have this find some ideas for this board box that's at the bottom. If I go ahead and click this box, it'll open up, if it ever loads, more ideas for paintings that its algorithm believes would be a fit for this particular board. And so I can essentially scroll through here, and anything that really stands out to me, I can absolutely go ahead and just click this little thumbtack icon, and it will go ahead and add that to that inspiration board. But the biggest problem with Pinterest right now is that it is inundated with AI content. So if your feed is getting flooded with AI images, or it just looks like it might be AI, or you're not 100% sure and you really don't want to be saving AI artwork, here is a quick fix. So once you're logged into Pinterest on your computer, all right, you're going to go ahead and click this gear icon that's lower left for settings and support. You're going to click Refine Your Recommendations. And then under AI content, you are going to make sure everything here is unchecked. It's especially important when it comes to art, but you can actually turn it off for everything. That should clean up your recommendations a lot, especially when you use this Find More Ideas feature in conjunction with turning the AI recommendations off. That being said, if Pinterest still feels overwhelming, use Instagram. It's actually a really simple trail to follow. So all you need to do is go to an artist you already follow and love, and then you're going to tap their following list. So you're going to browse who they follow, save posts from those creators that stop you in your tracks. And the more you save, the more Instagram will start serving you similar work. So you'll build momentum really fast. So for instance, if I really love this particular sketch, I can go over to this creator. I can go and check out the 672 people that he is following. And I can essentially check out each of these artists one by one and see how I resonate with their work. The more work I engage with by liking it and saving it especially, the more the algorithm is going to show me more work like that. And if you want to start with old masters like Sargent or Zorn or Sorolla, you can find really great images to save from Wikimedia Commons. Typically, you can do that by just going to an artist's Wikipedia page. This is especially true for like old masters, people whose work is definitely in the public domain, like Zorn, for instance. And if you scroll down to the part where it starts actually showing you images of their work, and they're the kind of artist whose work would be in a museum, you can simply click on one and it will pull up the Wikimedia Commons page for that, which is typically a very high resolution image. Now, you might be thinking, okay, cool, I'm with you, but how does saving random favorites help me actually paint better portraits? So this is just the first step. So what we're gonna do next helped my client Heike go from feeling so discouraged that she quit her illustration career to finding her voice for the first time in 30 years of trying, just with a few hours of work. So right now, if you've done all the steps up to this point, you've actually captured your taste, but it's not focused enough to show you a clear direction yet. So now we have to filter this down. So for every piece you've saved, we're going to ask, is this actually my preferred medium? Is this the subject that I'm most excited to paint? Would I genuinely enjoy the approach necessary to make this sort of painting? Would I be proud to sign my name on something like this or be known for this kind of painting? Would I pay money to have this painting in my home? We want you to find the pieces that check all of those boxes, and we're just going to keep those. So if I were starting from this inspiration board, for instance, I would simply go through and I would start looking for the top pieces that really check all of those boxes. And given that I have, 519 pins here, the way I'm going to make this way easier on myself is I'm going to start by just looking for the pieces that I know I am most excited about. One reason why I like using Pinterest for this exercise is that I can actually organize the board and I can put the pieces that I'm most excited by at the top, and it's going to make this exercise way easier. Yeah, it'll take a little bit of time to go ahead and like open up the organize tool and start reordering pieces. But once I actually do that, I can kind of just go through in order, starting with those pieces I love the most, see which ones check all of these boxes, and then we're going to go into the next step. One thing I will say that can make this way easier for you though, if you're here to paint oil portraits, only let oil portraits check this next box. That alone wipes out a lot of distractions. And by the way, you can grab all of those prompts that I just shared in that step-by-step workbook that's linked below. So what we're going to do once you understand which of these pieces check this box is that we're actually going to save them into a new inspiration board. We're not going to remove them from the first one. We're just going to copy them over to something new. So now, instead of having this very scattered collection of work, you should actually have a really clear, cohesive target. Maybe you're looking at your collection and thinking, what if this isn't cohesive enough? I like a lot of different things. Or you're afraid that you're about to commit to the wrong direction. Or maybe you just don't want to feel boxed in. Because I get it. Like once you start choosing art that's supposed to guide your direction, it can feel like you're closing a lot of doors and shutting down possibilities. So here's the good news. You are not locked into this forever. This is not a rigid, lifelong statement of your artistic identity. You just need it to be a clear target for this season of work, because something that's aligned enough that you would feel happy to commit to for now is all we're looking for. But if you're still uncertain, try this simple test. Once you take a look at that filtered down, curated down inspiration board of work that you most love, could you imagine walking into a gallery show and seeing every one of those paintings as a part of the same exhibition? If the answer is yes, you're good. And if part of you is still worried about being boxed in, remember, you can always repeat this process from this video later on, and you can use what you learn in the interim to get even more clarity on your direction. And you'll progress even faster this way because it is so much easier to reach your strongest, most competitive level when you've already mastered one way of painting before. Think about your favorite artist who specializes in florals, who then went on to win major awards for portraiture. Or a portrait painter who branched out and held a solo show of incredible landscapes. It's way easier to master one way of working and apply it to a new subject matter or style than it is to achieve mastery in multiple mediums, subjects, or styles simultaneously. So focus first. Don't worry about having the exact right target. Just commit. Get really good at that way of painting and then expand. Okay, so now you should have a really clear target to aim for, and you shouldn't be worrying about whether this is actually your ideal direction. But how do you know what you need to work on to get there? So maybe you look at your work compared to your inspiration and think, okay, I can tell this is better, but I don't know why, or I don't know what I need to do next to bridge this gap. This is where most artists stay stuck because they look at art to admire it instead of analyzing it to understand it. So we need to change how you're looking at your work. Here's the real reason that the gap between where you are and where you want to be feels so frustrating. It is usually too vague for you to actually act on. Because it's one thing to look at a master painting and say, I love it. It feels so alive. But that doesn't tell you what to practice tomorrow morning in your studio to achieve that in your own paintings. And if you can't translate admiration into something practical, you end up stuck in this loop where your goal feels inspiring, but you don't know how to really act on that inspiration in a way that moves you closer to it. And this is not just a you problem, this is an everyone problem. So Tina Garrett, who is an incredible painter, was with her idol, her mentor, Richard Schmid, one day, and they were looking at one of Richard's paintings together. And Tina was just soaking it in, and she starts describing it in this really human way. She was saying things like, it feels absolutely breathtaking. I feel like I can just feel the wind moving through the trees. And Richard stops her and goes, that's nonsense. Not because he was saying you shouldn't have an emotional reaction to art. Of course you should. That's like the whole reason why we make art. But he wanted her to notice something really important that she was skipping. If you can only describe a painting in romantic or emotional terms, you can't learn from it. So he instructs her, describe it only in terms of the fundamentals. And by that, he meant drawing, value, color, edges, composition. And Tina has to shift gears here. And she starts actually looking at the piece like a painter. And she notices things like, the greens aren't bright like they were straight from the tube. They're knocked down in chroma. And there aren't a bunch of fussy individual pine needles that he painted. He's really controlled the edges to create that illusion of detail. And once she put it that way, she could finally see how it worked. And then Richard basically gives her this instruction. From now on, don't stay in the romantic version. Keep it, but add the analytical reaction, because the answers to how to do it are sitting right there in the master's works, if you know what to look for. And it hit her. She had admired master paintings for years, but she hadn't always studied them like a painter who was trying to reverse engineer that level of result. That's exactly what we're doing here. We're shifting from being passive viewers, where painting is just something we react to understanding the painting the same way the master understood it. Because if we can understand the painting the same way the original artist did, we can start to bring that same level of mastery into our own work too. So if you take just one thing away from this section before we go any deeper, it is this. It is not enough to know that you just like a painting. You have to know why you like it, using concrete details that you can actually act on. And here's what makes this simple. Every painting, no matter the style, rests on 5 foundations: drawing, value, color, edges, and composition. Anytime something feels off in your painting, so it's flat, dead, muddy, stiff, not quite convincing, the answer is almost always sitting in one of those 5 buckets. If it looks flat, you might have a value problem. If it's muddy, that's a color problem. If it doesn't look like the person, that's usually a drawing problem. And if it feels stiff or not quite alive, that's often an edges or brushwork problem. And if you have none of those problems, but the painting doesn't beckon you to come look at it from across the room, that might be a composition problem. The goal here is to train your eye to identify which bucket is the problem, so you're not trying to fix everything at once, and you're not guessing. Because once you can name it, you can actually practice it. And once you can practice it, that vague gap turns into a very specific studio plan. Now, if you aren't confident that you can correctly pinpoint which bucket your portrait challenges fall into, follow along with me. I'm going to use some of my own paintings here as an example. And if you get lost, don't worry, just follow along with the prompts in the workbook below. I have here a snippet of my inspiration board over here on the left, and then I have a few samples of my artwork from back, like right before I went pro. And one thing that really jumps out at me right away, and we can do it in this order, it's okay to go on gut reaction, is like just how much more colorful my art is here. I'm looking at this inspiration board on the left, and like all of the backgrounds are like grays and whites and blacks and maybe like a few off-white colors. But if I look over at my board, I have like alizarin crimson, I have a bright purple background, I have what feels like 2 neon green backgrounds. This is one very simple adjustment that I can make through the lens of color or composition, depending on how you want to cut it, that could immediately really bring my work closer to my target. Or if I have my inspiration board here on the left, I pick out one very specific painting that I love from this Carolyn Anderson piece here in the middle, and then I put one of my older paintings next to it, this painting of pansies here on the right. Again, immediately I'm struck by this color issue, but now I see a very glaring compositional thing, which is my inspiration board and this Carolyn Anderson piece. These are all portraits, but I was focusing on painting flowers here. And right away, if I wanted to create a body of work that felt like this inspiration board, I could see how spending time painting flowers, it wouldn't really feel like it's moving me in that direction. So that is a very simple compositional change I can make on top of everything else. Similarly, if I'm comparing it really specifically to this beautiful Carolyn Anderson mother and child portrait, my values are going way darker than hers, and my edges and mark making are being handled almost entirely differently. Using this exercise, you can really pinpoint what's holding your portraits back from that award-winning quality that's in your desired style. But once you can pinpoint the gaps, next, you're going to want to actually start to close them. When it comes to composition, you can usually start to make changes on this immediately. So for instance, one simple change I could make here is simply to start painting people instead of flowers, and already that would move me toward my goal. But if you realize there are gaps in your ability to put brush to canvas the way your goal requires, you might be thinking, okay, well, I love these kinds of edges, but how do I actually make that mark? Or I love how much color I see on my inspiration board, but how do I work that kind of color into my paintings without it looking like a garish mess? The simplest answer is you create master copies of the pieces that you've saved on your inspiration board, just focusing on one skill at a time. So maybe you choose a portrait with gorgeous brushwork to help you improve your edges, or a stunning color harmony to work on color. But if you're thinking, okay, there's a lot that goes into tailoring those exercises to your specific goal, you're right. I've been helping people to do this for years. This is what I get to do all day, every day. And you've seen all of the case studies and wins from artists that I've shown you here in this video. And understanding what exercise is going to be ideal for each specific painter with her existing skill set, goal, and taste, it has a lot that goes into it. If you'd like to be able to do this for your portraits and think you might like my help to get there, click the link below. I'll walk you through exactly how I can help. And one critical thing I pay really close attention to that most painters miss is that mastery is made up of targeted effort over time. We just gave you the target in this video, but even the most effective exercise in the world is useless if you aren't actually getting in the studio and using that exercise day after day. And this one can be especially tricky with the most effective exercises out there because they're usually effective because they're a little bit tedious. So watch this video next where I show you how to structure your studio practice so you stick with it long enough to achieve that award-winning quality that you're after.